Okay, good evening everyone. Myself Mrs. Shweta Javadi, Assistant Professor, Shri B.M. Patil Institute of Nursing Science, Department of OBG Nursing. Today we will discuss regarding the disorder of amniotic fluid. Okay, disorder of amniotic fluid, there are two types will come, that is oligohydramnios and polyhydramnios. So first we'll learn regarding the basics of amniotic fluid. That is, the first is characteristics of amniotic fluid. See, first amniotic fluid is nothing but this is a fluid which is surrounded by the fetus. Okay, so when the baby is in the mother's womb, the amniotic fluid surrounds the baby. This amniotic fluid acts as a cushion for the baby and it serves a nutrition for the baby. Now, let's discuss regarding the characteristics of amniotic fluid. First is physical properties, like it is a colorless fluid. That means it is a colorless fluid. Is that is the fluid does not have some specific color. It is a colorless fluid. Next, regarding the specific gravity which is range between the 1010 to 1020. This is the specific gravity. Next, when comes to an reaction of the amniotic fluid, actually it is a neutral reaction, but slightly it will be alkaline in reaction. So when you say it is an alkaline, when the pH of the amniotic fluid is 7.5, 7 to 7.5. Next, when you go to a volume of the amniotic fluid, actually what happens here, the amniotic fluid, as the month increases or week wise, the amniotic fluid is going to increase its volume. So it reaches its maximum volume at 36 week of pregnancy. 36 in the sense like when the mother is in 9 month of age. So 9 month of gestation. So amniotic fluid reaches nearly about 1 to 1.5 liter. So the amniotic fluid volume will be ranges between 1 to 1.5 liter. 1500 liter will be there. And gradually after what happens after 9 months, it gradually start to diminish. That is to be like 500 to 1000 ml at term. So when it is 1000 ml at term, that is called as a normal amniotic fluid volume. So it is completely changed every 3 hours. That means the quantity of the amniotic fluid, then the solids which is there, that means chemical composition in the amniotic fluid, everything is going to change every 3 hours. Next, regarding the chemical composition of the amniotic fluid. The amniotic fluid consists of water, that is around 98 to 99% of it contains a water only, and other than that it contains a solid materials as like organic constituents like carbohydrates. It includes like glucose, fructose, proteins and hormones also it consists. Okay. Next comes to an origin, where it originates, where from the amniotic liquor comes. So actually the amniotic fluid has a both fetal as well as maternal origin. Fetal origin, when you go for a fetal origin, that means it is like fetal urine. As we know, the fetus is surrounded by the amniotic sac. So what happens here, fetus will pass the urine that is going to deposit in the amniotic sac. So this is one of the reason that maybe this is also one of the origin of the amniotic fluid. Next comes to an secretion from the amniotic epithelium. That means amniotic epithelium layer which start to secrete amniotic fluid. Next comes to a third one is diffusion from the umbilical cord vessels. It may be from the umbilical cord vessels the liquor amni originates. Then fetal skin, transudation from the fetal skin, that may be also one of the origin, and some of the secretions like bronchial mucosa, buccal mucosa, oral, buccal means oral mucosa, and some of the salivary glands. So these all are the fetal origin of amniotic fluid or liquor amni. Then when you come to a maternal origin, so this liquor is filtrate from the maternal plasma. Okay, so fetal of liquor amni, as I said, that is fetal, that means the baby will swallow. Then maternal is transudation into the maternal circulation. Next comes to functions of the amniotic fluid or function of the liquor amni, what it does, that means how it contributes. So during pregnancy, the amniotic fluid which will protect the fetus. As I said before, only amniotic fluid is covered by the fetus. Within the amniotic sac there will be a fluid will be there, so it protects the fetus from external injury. Next is it keeps the fetal body temperature in a constant. That means it will not make the baby very cold or very like hot. So it will make a constant temperature of the baby. Next, it allows a free fetal movement. That means it will prevent adhesion of body parts. That means it will allow that means with the help of amniotic fluid, the baby will swim inside the uterine cavity. So next is prevent adhesion between the amnion and fetal skin. That means this liquid will helps in prevents the adhesion. That means it will not able to, because of amniotic fluid, sufficient amount of amniotic fluid, amnion and fetal skin cannot be adhered. Okay, so it will prevent all those things. Next is it serve as a nutrition for the baby. As I said, the baby will drink those amniotic fluid and same the baby will pass there itself. Next, it act as a media for fetal excretion. As I said, the baby will pass the urine there itself, so it is a medium for fetal excretion. Next, it forms a closed sac around the fetus, preventing ascent of the infection from the cervix or vagina. That means it act as a barrier, like because of a closed sac. As I said, the closed sac is nothing but amniotic sac. So what it will do, it will prevent the infection, entry of infection either from the cervix or either from the vagina. So it will, if the infection is there also in the cervix or vagina, so it will prevent the entry of organism into the amniotic sac. Next, second one is during labor. During labor, it helps in dilatation of the cervix. That means amniotic sac pressure, because of the amniotic fluid as well as sac pressure, so it will helps in dilatation. That dilatation means enlargement of the cervix. Next, it prevents direct compression of the placenta between the uterine wall and fetus during the uterine contraction, thus avoiding the fetal asphyxia. That means it will prevent compression between the placenta, okay, placenta as well as to the uterine wall. So by preventing this, it will avoid fetal asphyxia. So the baby will not have any breathing difficulty. That function it will do. Then when the during labor, as we know that during labor first there is a fluid gush will be there. So that is nothing but immediately after the rupture of the membrane, the fluid washes the birth canal. That means once the membrane is ruptured, membrane is nothing but amniotic membrane, it is ruptured, so that amniotic fluid will be gushed into the vagina or cervical canal. So what happens, it will remove all the infectious material from the vaginal cavity. Next, now there are two types. As I said, there are two types of disorders of the amniotic fluid. The first one is polyhydramnios. So today we are going to discuss regarding the introduction, definition, incidence, etiology, clinical types, what all are the investigations to identify the polyhydramnios, and complications, management, all those things. Okay, let me introduce the topic. Polyhydramnia, that is amniotic fluid normally increases in amount throughout the pregnancy. That means, as I said, from beginning conception to till delivery time, the amniotic fluid is going to increase day by day. So what happens, the fluid which is not static, it is not constant, the water and solutes in it are changing every few hours. So there are two types of abnormality, polyhydramnia and oligohydramnia. Now polyhydramnia is a medical condition. This is one of the medical condition which is called when there is a excess of amniotic fluid in the amniotic sac. So when there is a excessive collection of amniotic fluid in the amniotic sac, then it will be called as a polyhydramnia. So there are two types of polyhydramnia varieties, that is, one is chronic, second one is acute one. The opposite to polyhydramnia is called as oligohydramnia, a deficiency of amniotic fluid. Next, when you come to a main definition, so polyhydramnia is defined as a state where the amniotic fluid exceeds 1500 to 2000 ml. As I said, the normal amniotic fluid will be 1000 to 1500. If suppose the amniotic fluid level is increases more than 1500, then you will call it as a polyhydramnion. So when you come to a clinical definition, the excessive accumulation of liquor amni causing discomfort to the patient, or when imaging help is needed to substantiate the clinical diagnosis of the lie and presentation of the fetus, it is called as polyhydramnion. That means because of excessive collection of amniotic fluid which cause discomfort to the mother, and to identify the lie of the baby as well as presentation of the baby, if you want to go for a ultrasonographic examination, then it is considered as a polyhydramnion. Incidence. Regarding incidence, it varies from 1 to 2% of the cases. It is more common in multipara. That means second times when she get a pregnancy in the second times, it is more common than in a primigravida. Primigravida means the mother who is giving for the birth for the she has become first time pregnancy. So those mother will be called as a primigravida. So it occurs in 1 in 1000 pregnancies. So this is regarding the incidence. Next comes to an etiology, that means causes. We will see what are the causes for polyhydramnion. So first one is fetal anomalies, that means fetal congenital abnormalities, like congenital fetal malformation is more associated with polyhydramnion, about 20% cases, like some of the fetal anomalies like anencephaly. You can see in the picture, the first picture is anencephaly, that is absence of cranial vault. Okay, second one is open spina bifida. These are the neural tube defect. Okay, because of neural tube defect, see, open spina bifida. The third picture, upper side open spina bifida. Next, esophageal or duodenal atresia. That means if the baby is having an absence of opening in the esophagus, what happens? The baby will not drink enough amount of water or enough amount of amniotic fluid. So those amniotic fluid will be deposited in the amniotic sac itself. So again it will cause a polyhydramnion. Next, facial cleft. That means if the baby is having a cleft lip or cleft palate. This is the fourth picture, that is cleft lip and cleft palate. What happens? The babies, this is also one of the congenital abnormal, the baby will not able to swallow the amniotic fluid. Next one is hydrops fetalis. This is hydrops fetalis, also one of the cause, that is because of RH incompatibility, complication of RH incompatibility. So these are all regarding the fetal anomalies. So when you come to a placental etiology, if there is a chorioangioma of the placenta, that if there is any carcinoma of the placenta, again it will lead to polyhydramnion. Next comes to a multiple pregnancy, like if there is a twin pregnancy is there, then that is affecting the second sac, more affected. Next, when you come to a maternal cause, that is if the mother is having a maternal diabetes like gestational diabetes, or if the mother is suffering with any cardiac disorder or renal disease, so there is a chance of developing polyhydramnion. So these all are the placental etiology. As I said, chorioangioma. This is first upper phylum is normal placenta. Okay, multiple pregnancy. Next comes to an clinical types. As I said, chronic type and acute polyhydramnion are there. So chronic is, it is the commonest onset in insidious, taking few weeks. That means chronic one is more common, that means it will occur either in the second trimester or either in third trimester. So that is acute, it is very extremely rare. Okay, this condition will not arise, but if it is occurs also, this is a extremely rare case, acute polyhydramnion. Next comes to an signs and symptoms of chronic polyhydramnion. Symptoms, the mother will show like dyspnea, difficulty in breathing will be there, then mother will have a palpitation, she will feel the heart rate, then edema of the legs, swellings in the legs will appear. Next comes to a sign, when you go for checking the patient, so the patient may be dyspneic state when she is lying in the bed, so she is not able to, she is feeling very difficulty to take the breath when she is in a lying down position. Then when you check, so there is a evidence of preeclampsias, like edema will be there, hypertension will be there, then proteinuria will be there. So these all are the evidence of this one preeclampsia. Next, go for an abdominal examination. When you check for abdominal examination, so inspection, abdominal, when you go for an inspection, you can see that abdomen is markedly enlarged. That means according to the gestational week what it should be there, but it is more than that. Gestational age means this one abdominal girth as well as abdomen looks a large one, that is abdomen is markedly enlarged. Then the skin is shiny with the largest trias will be there, that means stretch mark will be there, larger one, and it is very shiny will be there. Next, when you go for an palpation, when you feel in on your pads of the fingers, when you go for an palpation, the height of the uterus will be more than the period of amenorrhea. That means if suppose it should be, if it is like 28 week of pregnancy, but you will get like 32 weeks of pregnancy, it looks like 32 weeks of pregnancy. Then when you measure the girth of the abdomen, at this one at the umbilicus, it will be more than the normal size. Then you cannot able to palpate the fetal parts because of more liquor amni, you are not able to feel the fetal parts. Next comes to an auscultation, you are not able to hear the fetal heart sound also when you go for an auscultation. Next comes to an investigation. What all are the investigation you can do identifying the polyhydramnios? The first one is ultrasonography. This is the effective investigation. So with the help of ultrasonography only you can identify that the mother is having polyhydramnios. So along with that, other this one related you can identify relating causes, like by seeing the blood test, like you can send the blood for RH typing, IBO and RH typing, you can identify the blood group whether there is incompatibility is there, because RH incompatibility is also one of the cause for polyhydramnios. Next, you can identify the blood sugar level of the mother, whether the mother is suffering with the diabetes, all those things. Then again you can go for amniotic fluid alpha fetoprotein test to identify the fetal causes, like baby, whether baby is suffering with any neural tube defect, NTDs. Next comes to an complication. When you go for an complication, so some of the maternal complication as well as fetal complication will arise due to the polyhydramnios. That is, during pregnancy the mother will develop preeclampsia, as I said before, that it is a elevation of the blood pressure along with the edema as well as proteinuria. Next comes to there will be a malpresentation because of more liquor amni, the baby will not stay constant, so it will oftenly change its position. Next is pre-rupture of the membrane, that means before terms it will rupture the membrane is going to rupture. Then there is a chance of preterm labor, that means the delivery may occur at 28 week or 32 weeks, so it is called as preterm labor. Next, some of the complication which will arise during labor is, first one is early rupture of membrane, that will be there. Then sometimes there will be a cord prolapse, cord will deliver first, then there is a chance of increased operative delivery, that is because of malpresentation. Because of malpresentation you cannot go for a normal delivery, so there is a chance of either forceps delivery or either a cesarean section. Next, some of the complication which will arise during puerperal, that is subinvolution. Subinvolution means the uterus which has to return to its normal position after during the puerperal period, but what happens, it will not return to its original pace. That may be a delay in involution, all those things. So that is called as subinvolution. Then there is a chance of increased puerperal morbidity, that is results due to the infection because of the either because of any injury into the cervical canal or because of cesarean section. Then fetal complication is the baby may die, that is because of like prematurity. If it is preterm labor occurs, it may be due to prematurity, the baby may not mature, baby lungs is not mature, then sometimes the baby will die because of the congenital anomalies. Next comes to an management. Some of the managements, like the before management, some principle you have to follow, that is, first thing you have to keep it in mind, the principle is to relieve the symptoms. As I said, some of the symptoms the mother will have like palpitation, all those things, dyspnea, so that is first your aim to relieve those symptoms. Next is to find out the causes by undergoing some test. Mother has to undergo some test. Then to avoid and to deal with the complications. So if any complication arises, you should be ready to deal all those complications. Next comes to an supportive therapy. Supportive therapies are, first is bed rest is required for the mother. Then treatment, like treatment associated with condition, like you have to treat the preeclampsia by giving antihypertensive drugs, all those things. Then investigation, she mother has to undergo some investigation to identify some of the congenital abnormalities of the fetus, all those things. Then further management will be depend on the response to the treatment. That means how the mother responses and what is the period of gestation of the mother, and presence, whether there is a presence of fetal malformation or associated complicating factors. Then if the response to the treatment is good, then you can continue the pregnancy. Mother can continue the pregnancy. But suppose if the response means for the treatment, if the mother is not giving good response, like they still it is deteriorating, then pregnancy should be, if the pregnancy is less than 37 weeks, then you can go for an amniocentesis. Then if the pregnancy is more than 37 weeks, you can go with the induction of labor, that is initiation of the labor should be started. Then you can go for an amniocentesis, then termination of the pregnancy can be done. Then during labor, usual management, how we are going for a normal delivery, same management can be followed. Then if the uterine contraction, suppose if she is undergoing a normal delivery, suppose uterine contraction is slow is there, then you can start with the oxytocin drip and infusion may be started. Then you have to prevent postpartum hemorrhage. Then you can administer, once the baby shoulder is delivered, you can administer IV methotrexate drugs can be administered. So this is regarding the today's topic on polyhydramnios. If you have any doubt regarding the polyhydramnios,